Welcome to another video. I'm rebuilding an organizer for our back patio table, and this time I'm using a combination of beech and black walnut. The beech was actually the bottom of the barrel, if you will, with the supplier I normally go to. There were 3 pieces left over on the pallet. Nobody wanted them. They were ugly, but I figured they would be perfect for this particular project. After making sure I had the correct width that I needed to work with for the block that I'm going to build, creating the checkerboard pattern, it was time to get everything cut down to a manageable length and start getting everything glued together. Here I've got some painter's tape that I put on some plywood scraps just to give it a flat surface to rest on while I get everything clamped together and make sure it stays the way I want it to. I thought I had filmed putting the block together, but apparently I didn't because I couldn't find the footage anywhere. So I'm not going to be able to show you that part, unfortunately. But I can show getting the mitered edge or trim put on it, just to help finish it off and give it a nice clean look. I also started working on the base and getting that ready to be routed out to place the checkerboard block into and the outside edges of the box. And now I'm starting what will be the several hours of sanding I'm going to be spending doing this project because I'm going to have to redo part of this. And you'll see why in a minute. And this is what happens when you forget that your router base has a flat side on it and you try and move it around the form that you put together. So now I get to recut everything, but it gives me a chance to do the base a little bit differently. And I'm going to do a half lap for the two halves instead of just a simple glued edge. With this being outside and exposed to moisture and condensation a little bit more, I wanted to have more of a glue surface to hold the base together to reduce the risk of it separating like the other one started to. And right about now is where my camera overheated and shut off, and I didn't realize it. So I wasn't able to show the glue up process, the clamping, or anything else because it was just too late by the time I realized that it had turned off. Now that the base is prepared, I can get the block set up and centered onto this so that it's even all the way around. And I'll be using a combination square just to help verify that everything is even and it's square to the base. And now it's time to make a complete mess of my shop with hogging out the recess that block is going to sit into. And this time I'm making sure to be careful of which way the router is oriented so that I don't overrun what I need to route out and end up having to be in a position where I feel like I need to redo the base all over again. Today turned out to be not so good of a camera day. Not only did it overheat and shut off, but I wasn't paying attention and ran the battery out. So I missed getting the block put in place, getting everything glued in, and getting the sides of the box put together as well. And now to rat out the recess that is going to be set for the ashtray holder that'll be on the back porch. Between the hand sanding and cleaning up the area that was routed out, there's about 2.5 hours of coverage that I'm not going to bore you with. It was bad enough for me to have to deal with it, but here is the end result of getting that routed out, sanded down, and ready to finish. Here I'm adding a little bit of trim just to give a little bit of a contrast on the inside and give it a little bit more of a finished look. The final step is getting the bottom notched out where it's going to set into the hole that was left behind by one of the tiles being broken years ago. This just helps make sure that it has a place to sit. It's not going to slide all over, and we don't have to worry about grandkids or anyone else or pets pushing or knocking this off of the table. Now that the last of the sanding is finished, I can go ahead and start getting this cleaned up. wiping it down with denatured alcohol just to help clean up any additional dust remnants or oil off my hands prior to applying the oil finish. I have found this really does make a huge difference on your finishes, especially with oils, and being able to keep everything clean and not end up with any discoloring because of foreign material or other oils that might be on the wood prior to adding the finishing oil. For this project, I'm using a mix of linseed and tung oil. It's about 25% linseed and the rest of it tung oil. I wanted something that's going to be a little bit darker, bring out more of the grain, but also provide a little more protection, seeing this is going to be outside. And I don't have a really good option for a monocoat that is designed for outside finishing. And so we'll see how this works. It should make it easier to keep it clean, and I can always reapply the oil later on if needed. Alright, I'm going to let that sit for about an hour. Come back, put another coat on, and then let it sit overnight. Alright, now this has had time to sit overnight, and it's feels dry to the touch. I'm going to give it a couple more hours, I think, before I put it on the back porch. But I know it may seem like this is kind of an unnecessary thing and building something just for the sake of building something. But I wanted to replace this, which I built a couple of years ago. It's out of multiple different types of wood. I mean, it looks nice. However, the age has gotten to it, and if you see down in here, the bottom is actually starting to separate, and I just don't really like the way it looked. My first time of doing any kind of a checkerboard, a lot of this is really uneven, but I've learned a little bit since the first time I built, since I built this, and I think my skills are getting a little bit better. One of the biggest differences is on the bottom. As you can see, this is more or less mitered, and then the checkerboard section is just simply screwed onto the bottom. With this one, you saw me route out the base and set it down into it, and then also actually cut out the bottom piece that's going to fit where the tiles go so that it actually sits in place properly. And I don't have any kind of separation in here or anything else that's going to eventually end up coming loose or
create a point of failure. So I'm a lot happier with this. I think it definitely looks a whole lot nicer, and I think it'll work very well for what we want it to do. But appreciate you watching, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.